Welcome to the Doing Life Together podcast. I'm Jonathan.
I'm Kristen.
I'm Owen.
I'm Eli.
And I'm Evan.
Welcome. Excited to have Chrissy back with us today. Today we're going to talk about relationships. So that's the theme of the episode is relationships. We're going to talk about 3 different types of relationships that you need and how to have those types of relationships in a healthy way. Chrissy brought this to my attention, so I'm pretty excited because she's pretty smart. And so when she has a good idea and shares it with me, I feel pretty honored. So we'll cover all of that here in a minute. But first, of course, we're going to start with our random question of the day.
What law would you like to introduce?
Your mom's giggling, so she probably has a good one that she doesn't want to share.
No, it's just hard.
It's hard to have a law that you'd introduce.
Mm-hmm. It's hard to think.
All right, next question.
No, you got to have a good one. How about this? I got one. Retail establishments cannot have Christmas decorations for sale before Halloween is over. Like it used to be that you'd start seeing that stuff at Thanksgiving. Now it's like 2 weeks after or 2 weeks before Halloween. Seems like they've swapped out the Halloween decorations in favor of Christmas stuff. And that's just too soon. That's not fair.
Well, I think that could probably be applied to all holidays because I was a little surprised the other day to see the Halloween candy right next to the school supplies. I thought that was a little early. So maybe it should be something like, I don't know, 45 days, 2 months.
Kind of something going down that topic as well. I actually saw my first Christmas ad that was like kind of Christmas based the other day. Already in middle of August.
And you're a big Christmas fan. I mean, you've got the countdown on your phone right now. So if that was surprising to you, it might be too early.
All right. It sounds like we would all enact that into law.
I would make a new national holiday being the day after the Super Bowl.
Oh.
So Super Bowl Monday is no longer working for people or school.
Would it be too political to ask which day you'd get rid of, or would you just add a new one?
Oh, like which holiday?
Rid of June.
What? I'm just so confused what that was going on about.
Because at work, so like at work, you're only allowed so many holidays off. So if you make it a national holiday, you would have to give one up. You can't just add like there are currently like, is it 7 or 9? You can't just go 8 to 10. You'd have to say, well, this one we're no longer going to take off.
There's plenty of holidays I'm not going that crazy out for that I need a day off.
So what's that? That's the beginning of February. So we can get rid of I was going to say something. I don't think we're legally allowed to boot MLK Day out the window. So
no, we would not recommend that. What about if you got to pick? So like you had like a pool. Here are the 10 days you could take, and every person got to choose their own ones that they're going to take off. Would that work?
Maybe. I don't know. But then would like a supervisor have to come in on Christmas because an employee decides not to take that day off?
This is why laws don't ever get enacted because they're not as simple as it seems. All right. Anybody have a different one? I'm surprised your mom didn't say that husbands can't wear fall clothes in the springtime.
What is he on?
This guy's on a different. He's looking for in the summer. I don't know. I feel like spring and fall have the same weather, so they probably got the same clothes.
What do you feel about that, honey?
No, there are definitely certain colors and patterns that are fall.
I wear the
versus
same
spring.
7 shirt rotation every week, no matter what.
Getting close to fall. It's fine.
I get what you're saying, but I don't know. I don't think.
It's not like that.
All right. Like I said, today we're going to talk about relationships and why they matter and what does it look like to have good relationships. Chrissy brought this to my attention the other day. She woke up and typed it up in a text and then sent it to me. So that way, when I woke up, I had this text of this great idea she had. And I'll let her talk about what that is here in a second. But part of my coaching on having a successful life is this idea that you have to have really good relationships. And I call it community. So that's the letter C in Arch Impacts is about community. And that centers just basically, like I said, around you need to have healthy relationships in order to achieve the kind of success that you want in life, or at least for success to feel the way that you think that it should. This is supported by Harvard's research on happy, healthy lives, which they call their longitudinal study on happiness, and which basically says people with the best relationships live the longest, live the healthiest, and have the happiest lives. And so, like I said, the other day, Chrissy, you sent me a couple texts, and I thought it was really clarified. It was a better way of thinking about something I've tried to explain to people. So even though I've been talking about it for a while, there's always ways to learn. Learning is important. So, honey, you want to talk about it?
Yeah, so this is definitely not something I came up with. Actually, this summer, while I was serving with Owen, Eli, and Evan at Round Lake Christian Camp, we heard of this concept. And so, yeah, you can be there volunteering to help kids learn about Jesus, and you can learn a lot as an adult or a young adult as well. So this idea was that everybody needs a Paul, Barnabus, and Timothy in their life. And so when I decided to text John, I woke up in the middle of the night and I was thinking about that. And God just put it really clearly on my mind that we all need these three people and we all need to be these three. So I kind of summed it up to John like, hey, this is a good way to present it to people. It's something they'll remember if we just kind of simplify it as need three, be three. So the concept is around Paul, Barnabas, and Timothy, who were significant figures in the New Testament in the Bible. And they helped start the early church. And Paul was a great teacher. He had been a Pharisee who initially persecuted Christians, and then God got a hold of him on the road to Damascus and really changed his life. And he became super influential to other people and teaching them about Christian theology and practices. So the idea is everybody needs a teacher in their life. Barnabas was kind of a partner alongside Paul, and he was very encouraging and instrumental in the early spread of Christianity, particularly among the Gentiles. So he was really just encouraging new people in their faith. And his name means son of encouragement. Timothy was one of Paul's students, or someone that Paul really mentored. He poured into Timothy and even gave him great leadership responsibilities to kind of bring him along in his faith journey. So we all need someone that we are also pouring into. So we need that teacher, we need that encourager, and we need someone that we are teaching or bringing along as well. So that's the need three. And then B3 is to turn around and be all those to someone else. So be someone's encourager, be someone's teacher, and be a student of someone else because we're never done learning. So that was just my idea, help put this into the things that John's already teaching and promoting about community and relationships, and really focus in on the need 3B3 concept. Did I sum it up?
I think you could also be an amazing marketer. Need 3B3. Let's see how well you did. All right, kids, summarize the need 3B3. See how well you were listening.
You need a teacher to be a student and an encourager in your life, and you also need to be that as well.
What about so your mom used three names. What were the three names, and which role did each person play?
Paul the teacher.
There was
Eli, stop feeding him the answers.
What are you on about?
Your phone right there with the article pulled up.
No, it's not. It's off.
Ooh.
So there's Paul, the teacher.
Good one.
Timothy is the student, and Barnabas is the encourager.
Nice.
Good
He
job.
clearly was paying attention.
So I will say there's one like slightly confusing part of the need 3B3 because two of them overlap. Really, 3 + 3 = 5, but who's counting?
That sounds like Common Core math. We're just going to say 3 + 3 = 6 and leave it at that. Because you can be the person that you're teaching doesn't necessarily
Have to be the person who's learning from you. You could have multiple people. Does that make sense? That's just one area I've been like a little.
I hope the person you're teaching.
Yeah, why are you teaching somebody if they're not?
Well, they
learning
have
from
to
you?
learn from you, but they don't have to check that box. They could check. So the need 3, you need a teacher, you need an encourager, you need a student. You need to be a teacher, an encourager, and a student. So the person who is your student, you are their teacher. You get what I'm saying? They overlap. Whoops, hold on. I put up too many fingers. But you could have 2 people that you're teaching.
I'll give you a real example. So in the workforce, I tend to try to mentor lots of people. So not everyone that I'm pouring into, if I were to say, hey, who's a teacher that you look up to, would say me. But that doesn't mean that I'm not applying that. There are people who are probably pouring into my life that I would be like, if you were like, hey, who's mentoring you, I wouldn't necessarily put their names out there. So it's kind of that idea that just because you have that relationship with somebody or view yourself as having that relationship doesn't mean it's reciprocal. But just because it's not reciprocal doesn't mean it's not an effective or important relationship. So I will say that ironically enough, as we were getting ready to record this podcast, Inc. magazine posted an article. It was about Warren Buffett and his 12 keys to a great life. Do you guys know who Warren Buffett is?
Yeah.
Buffett known for?
To me, he's known for offering $1 billion for a perfect bracket.
He got $1 bajillion. He is not a country singer, Evan.
I was wrong. What do you know?
You mean Jimmy Buffett, buddy?
Who did he say?
Warren Buffett.
Warren Buffett.
And Jimmy?
Jimmy Buffett is the singer.
He owns like, what is it, Berkshire Hathaway?
His closest friends call him the Oracle of Omaha. And he's just really well known for investing and owning companies and just having a real good insight into where what companies are worth investing in. He's one of the richest people in the world.
And he sang 5 o'clock somewhere.
And
They have the same name, bro.
yeah.
Jimmy
Thank
and
you,
Warren,
Evan
yeah.
Longoria. Oh, wait. You're not the third baseman from the Tampa Bay Devil Rays just because your name's Evan?
Dude.
Gotcha.
But anyway, we digressed, but in a fun way. So there was this article put out by Inc. magazine, 12 Keys to a Great Life. And ironically enough, number 3 was find mentors, which is that Paul concept. Number 6 was to nurture your relationships. And number 10 was to teach, or that Timothy concept. So basically, of his 12 keys, 33% were about relationships.
Nope.
25.
25.
Wow.
25%. Well, clearly all my mentors didn't do a good job of teaching me math because I failed that one. Anyway, 1 out of every 4, 25% of his list, oh boy, is about relationships. And most of that directly relates to this concept we're just talking about of Paul, Timothy, and Barnabas, even though he didn't use those terms. All right, let's go. Why do you guys think relationships matter? So the Bible talks about relationships being central to what it means to be a human. Psychology, sociology, huge fields of study on the importance of relationships and interpersonal reactions. Warren Buffett, 25% of his list is about why relationships make you great. The Harvard study says it matters. Why do you guys think, in your youth and perspective, so as young people, what are you learning about why relationships matter?
I would just say going through life all by yourself would be very difficult. You wouldn't have anybody to share their experiences with you so you can learn from them. Basically, everything you know about anything would have to be from yourself experiencing it. So you would literally know essentially nothing without first trying it. So you'd make a lot more mistakes, that's for sure. I don't know. There's like just everything like not to do. If you had 0 relationships, you would have to do it yourself. You'd have to do it wrong yourself to learn that you're not supposed to do whatever it is. So whether it's like not sticking your hand in, or like
A blender.
Yeah, not sticking your hand in a blender, not touching a stove that's on, you just wouldn't know anything.
So that's like the extreme version of
Yeah, those are extreme.
never have anybody around. But that same thought came to my mind. Like there's a reason that solitary confinement is a form of punishment. Like we're not intended to be in isolation. And so just so many aspects of our life are affected when we don't have that community or relationships to turn to help process things, to help learn things, as Eli pointed out, because we're not created to be living on an island.
What else?
Well, I mean, obviously, without relationships, you wouldn't be able to fulfill any of the need 3B3 because it's like all of those require another person for it. So if you're missing encouragement in your life, it can be hard to find a reason to stay motivated and keep working towards your goals and get through failure. And if you're lacking a teacher, then you're just kind of going into some things blind, and that can be really bad. And you may be completely on the wrong track and you just have no idea because you're just going based off of your own knowledge. And if you're going to something new, then you won't have much knowledge on it. And then for being a teacher yourself, obviously you can't teach anybody if you don't have a student or a relationship that allows you to be their mentor. And I don't know, at least for me, it feels like when I'm mentoring or teaching somebody, like I end up learning a lot from it myself. And so like you lose out on that aspect of learning for yourself and improving in your own life.
Yeah, and I think that's a key piece. Sorry, flipping back to the need 3B3 for a second. Like you need that opportunity to teach someone because of the benefits it has for us.
Mm-hmm.
But then you need to be that to someone else because of their need to learn.
Mm-hmm.
So you're meeting different needs. So that kind of helped me clarify that.
Mm-hmm.
3 + 3 does equal 6.
Another reason why do healthy relationships matter? We got shared learning. Lack of encouragement could lead you to quit. As a mentor, you actually learn from others. So those 3 types of relationships are mutually beneficial. What about it's just fun? Like there was that movie that you guys probably never saw because it was old. Therefore, it's not great in your opinion. But Castaway. So it was this movie it had Tom Hanks, and he was shipwrecked or somehow he ended up on an island by himself. And one of the things he did to help himself not go crazy was to paint a face on a volleyball, and he called it Wilson.
Yeah. Another example of that we can relate to is in Alvin and the Chipmunks. I don't remember which one, where the lady's on the island and she basically does the same thing and paints faces on like all sorts of different balls. And then because she was there so long, she just like was lacking relationships with any real humans. So she ended up like creating their own personalities in her mind and like had them talking to her. And it was, like, so obviously I'm guessing Alvin and the Chipmunks got it from Castaways or whatever, but that was, when you said that, that's what I thought of.
Somehow I think there's great shame in comparing Castaway to Alvin and the Chipmunks, but that's okay. I like what we did there. He was relatable now. But I guess where I was going with that is, in order to survive the isolation of the island, it was even better to make up fake relationships than to just be alone. Like, it was so innate that that's just what they had to do. I mean, think of that show. What's that show called? Where the people are on the islands or in the or in the
What?
Alone,
It's called Alone,
isn't it?
Yeah, it is. She's right.
and all those people basically last as long as they can alone. And I'm not like a big time watcher of that, but every episode I've ever seen, typically, or every season I've watched any part of, someone in that says, the reason I'm quitting is I miss my family or I miss a certain person and I just want to go be with them.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
So I was watching an episode of that show, and this dude put on a bunch of weight so that he could survive longer, like if he couldn't eat, because he would have his body fat for energy. And he broke his ankle on the first day. So he was just had to go home fat because he broke his ankle.
It's terrible.
That's a horrible. Hopefully he went home to somebody who could take care of him because he was in healthy relationships. But I could totally see why that would be crazy. But it's also a good time to remind people we have a YouTube channel, the Doing Life Together podcast at Arch Impact Studio. And so you can see all these silly faces and the giggling.
And messiness behind here.
We've never gotten any comments about the messiness of the room.
Mm-hmm.
But thank you for caring.
Mm-hmm.
All right. But it's an example that people use often. If aliens came down to Earth and watched our family, what would they say it takes to be part of a good, healthy family relationship? Either because it's something we do well or because it's something you're like, they would say that, see it and say, no, don't do that.
I think one thing for sure is that you need to communicate well, because if you don't communicate, then you're just going to let your problems, if they start small and then you don't communicate them, and then they'll just keep growing, and then it'll turn into like some big old thing. And I think another thing is like, you have to actually want to be around the people. Because like if you just sit in your room all day and don't really want to talk to them, then the conversations you do have are not going to be very good.
What does it take to want to be around someone? Like what, like that's kind of like an outcome, and I would agree. But what goes into wanting to be around someone?
I think one thing that helps is if you like are able to find something that you both enjoy, so you can like bond over that.
So a little bit of common interests. All right, what are some other things that cause you to want to be around somebody?
I mean,
Mutual respect.
Mutual respect.
mm-hmm.
What does that mean?
Making sure that you are demonstrating like respect for the other person's feelings, time, possessions, all of that, the same way that you would expect that in return. So I think, especially even in a parent-child relationship, we can't just demand respect. We have to teach our kids what that looks like by being respectful to them.
Makes a lot of sense. Anything else that we put on the want to be around list? How important is fun?
Yeah, it's important.
Pretty important, yeah.
Okay. So what else? Would the aliens go back to their mothership and say, here's what it takes to be in a good family relationship?
Well, kind of what Evan was alluding to with just like addressing conflict. So not necessarily just having good communication, but like when there is something wrong, like you have to actually address the conflict and not just pretend that it's not there, because nothing will ever be good. And there will always be like that felt tension between you. And so you can't really have a strong and good relationship and have that fun or whatever if there is that unaddressed conflict, I guess. So it's like, that's one thing our family does a lot. It's like, if there is conflict, then we address it. And some people might look at that and be like, they're always fighting, they must hate each other. But really, it's like, that's maybe 5 or 10% of the time where we're addressing that conflict. And like the other 90% is everything is actually good and we enjoy being around each other because we address that conflict. And there's no like elephant in the room or something hanging over our heads where we feel some tension.
I think that's a really good point and something we've had to learn over time, how to do conflict in a healthy way. But something else that you said resonated with me, which was this idea that other people would be like, oh, they must fight all the time. And that's not the case. But because it's so rare, it does really stick out for people. Like, I think that's something about healthy behaviors, is that sometimes they can be so rare that people will be like, oh my gosh. And it really stands out. So,
yeah, like that's definitely something that I saw, like going off to college and like being around only people that all came from different families and backgrounds or whatever. It was like, I had those few friends that like were okay with addressing conflict, and like it was like, okay, I never have any issues with them because anything that we do have, it's something small and then it's addressed, and then we go back to being everything's fine and actually fine. And then there's like other people that I'm around and it's like there's just constantly like they see somebody and they're in fear of having to like interact with them because of something that's outstanding that they haven't brought up. And it's just like crazy to me that people like choose to live like that rather than spend a minute being uncomfortable to just not have to deal with that stress and anxiety of seeing someone or having to interact with somebody that you would consider your friend even.
all right. So we got communicate. You want to be around each other because you have common interests, mutual respect. There's an element of fun. Conflict is addressed. Anything else that you would say it takes to be in a good family relationship?
I'd say like teamwork and everybody doing their part, especially like obviously parents are going to do more for the family than the kids, but kids just putting in what they can to help around and stuff like that. And then probably also I'd say some compromise, like when there's decision making, the parents and the family can't just be like always have what they want in mind and not take into account what everybody else wants.
Patience is also definitely a big thing, especially for like us in a big family where it's like, yeah, you might have something that you need like addressed or you need to talk about, but like there's 6 other people in the family who also have needs and stuff they have to do and stuff like that. So just being patient and willing to just like wait your turn, I guess, is key.
All right. Perfect. Thanks, guys. All right. So if we think about, so family is a nice one because it's a complex dynamic, plus it's a key part of our lived experience, to go back to something Eli said. But now let's look at the idea of being a good teacher, a good encourager, and a good learner or student. What are some characteristics of a good teacher?
I would say they have to be engaging. Like when I think of like a school teacher or something, they can't just be standing up at the front of the classroom reading off bullet points. Like that gets the job done, but doesn't do as good of a job as someone who actually tries to engage the people that are trying to learn off them.
For me, I would say easy to talk to. They have to be knowledgeable in what they're trying to teach you on. Relatable. Like if they're relatable, that's definitely helpful. They need to be caring, because like if they don't actually care about you and that you learn it, then you probably won't get what you need out of it. And then I feel like they have to be pretty good at explaining as well, because it's like, especially if it's something I'm going into and I have like no knowledge on, if they can't explain it thoroughly and correctly, then it's like, sure, they might be giving me the right information, but I'm probably not going to actually be able to learn it.
Being willing to, especially when we're talking about like a life teacher teaching you about, things that you're going through in life or how to grow in your faith or things like that. I definitely think being willing to be vulnerable and share their own experiences. Like Eli said, we can benefit a lot from learning from other people's mistakes or victories even. So being willing to open up and be honest about their own life, I think is a real big key.
Engaging and explaining, good communicator, relatable, actually know stuff. They're caring. They want you to learn. They're vulnerable, honest. Anything else?
I don't think so.
So if that's what it takes to be a good teacher, so you're you're engaging, so you communicate well, you are relatable, you actually know stuff, so you shouldn't be teaching things you don't actually know anything about, which seems obvious, but I think lately with the ease at which it is to create content and share things, and, even if you think about artificial intelligence and the ability to just put in a prompt and get information, that know stuff piece, I think, becomes less and less guaranteed. Like it used to be, if you were teaching somebody something, you had to have some experience, right? Now it's like, oh no, I can just let me Google that and tell you what Google says and pretend to speak into you. So I think that's seems obvious, but I worry it's less true than it used to be. You have to care about the motivation of the other person, and you have to be willing to be vulnerable and honest. So if we look at that list, I'm going to turn to my beautiful wife, who is a teacher by profession. Which of those, if any, do you think are the hardest, either because you struggle or you see other teachers struggle?
I teach third grade. So I would say that, to my third graders, I'm not often being super vulnerable, but I do think that is one of the harder things I see in, looking to a spiritual mentor or even a professional mentor. A lot of times people have this perception that they have to have it all together in order to be a teacher or to be at that point where they can, pour into someone else. And I think it ends up turning a lot of people off to what they have to say. If you're not willing to say, here's where I've struggled in the past and what I've learned along the way because of that. I would say in my third grade classroom, making sure I'm engaging enough to hold their attention is probably the biggest challenge, because especially coming off summer break, the swimming pool, the video games, the TV, that was all a lot more engaging than I can.
I would say as a senior leader in a corporate environment, I think it's about being relatable. And the reason I would say that is that as a leader, you tend to know things and make decisions with information that other people don't have. And I don't mean in like a secretive way, you're not sharing or trying to hide things, but just over the course of your engagement in a group, you just pick up on things, things, you're subconsciously just aware of things. And so when you make decisions, a lot of people doubt the decision you're making because they don't know what you know. And they have this perception that you're the leader, so you get privileges and other things that we don't get. So even though you're trying to help me understand what the best solution is, you don't really understand because you're different. You're the leader. You have privilege. You have information. So it's really hard to be a relatable leader, no matter how hard you try. So I would say in a corporate environment, as a leader / teacher, being relatable is hard. What about you guys as your role in a teacher mentor to your friends or whatever?
Camp counseling.
Yeah, camp counselors. That's a great example.
I mean, that one, like Mom said, we were dealing with similar age kids. It was keeping them engaged, like during talk time. They would get distracted by a stick that was just sitting there. Like we had a raccoon one time, and like I actually just could not do it. I could not compete with a raccoon there. Like they were obsessed with it. I don't know. Like I couldn't get their attention at all. So when it comes to like peers and stuff, I think it can be hard to like show that you're like knowledgeable because they're your age, and so sometimes they're like, well, you just know the exact same stuff as I do, or like don't think of you as like somebody with more knowledge than them. So it can be hard to like really express like, no, I promise I actually know like what I'm talking about when it comes to this, like stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know.
So do you have a strategy that you use to help other people
Well,
know stuff?
a lot of times you just have to like sound knowledgeable when you're talking about it with them, and then just they'll start to believe you. But if there's some people who just aren't looking to receive knowledge from somebody their age, and those people I have not found a way to get through to.
I think that's a really solid point. Some people just aren't receptive to being taught. And so as a good teacher, you need to know sometimes being a good teacher is walking away and saying, yep, this person's not ready to be spoken into. And if I try, no matter how hard I try to pour life into them, it's wearing me out and they're not changing. Like, so there's wisdom in that. So, and thanks for sharing. You're kind of the outgoing leader type. So Eli, as the quiet leader type, which characteristic of a teacher is hardest for you?
I'd say the being vulnerable part. I don't like to let people know when I'm struggling with something or something along those lines. So I just don't. And so it's like harder for them to relate to me potentially because I don't like to show that maybe I've had the same difficulties they have had.
I appreciate you sharing that. I know that was hard to be vulnerable. Thank you.
Yep.
And then Evan, as kind of like you're kind of like, I would say you're like the surprising leader. Like, I don't think you get enough credit for.
Because you're goofy.
Because you're goofy. But I know that people reach out to you when they have serious stuff that they're trying to work through and they seek wise counsel from you. So as someone who's kind of like a surprising leader or unexpected leader, and I mean that very respectfully, what is one of the things that's really hard to be a teacher?
Probably along the lines of like what Owen said, where it's hard to kind of gain the people's trust. Because like you said, I don't really come on necessarily as a leader right away. So like after like not coming on necessarily as a leader, it's hard to gain their respect after their opinion's already made up of you and let them know like that I actually am a leader and stuff like that.
And the best way to do that, what is the best way you found to get people to embrace you as a leader?
I don't know. I kind of just keep doing it, even if they like the first time they don't listen or the second time they don't listen. Eventually, if you just keep going, they're going to listen at some point.
So we can add that to our list. So being a good teacher requires like a continuous persistence.
Oh.
Persistence. I like that word. That's a teacher word. All right. Now let's move on.